Hey everyone, this is Louis7, and there's some big news for the Lord of the Rings Online that I want to share with you all and give some of my thoughts on. So the producer's letter, A Look Ahead to the Future, was just released on the LOTRO website, and I will link that below in the description if you want to follow along, but I'm just going to be going through giving some of my thoughts on the big things they have. So what this producer's letter is, it focuses on the goals for the upcoming year, and it's a little bit different than just upcoming content and features, but more insight into how they want to improve the game. So that it's starting off really good, just to look more less into content specific stuff coming, but more in how they want to improve the game, which is always good to see the game improve. But it provides a little bit of a roadmap for the following year. It focuses on some of their goals in 2019. So it's kind of split into some sections here, some pretty big things. So we'll just go in order here with story first. I guess at this point I should give you all a little bit background. I have read the letter and that's about it. I haven't really had time to fully form some of my thoughts. I thought I would go ahead and give like my initial reactions and impressions to these. Hopefully that's more enjoyable that way. But yeah, let's go ahead and review some of this content some more. So starting off with the story, they will continue the ongoing story. They'll be continuing the Black Book of Mordor, it looks like, as it goes through Middle-earth, and leads players to their next expansion. So as far as the content, what the term expansion means, I don't know if that just means like an update 24, if they're actually planning on releasing another expansion. So that's something to note there, just their use of the word expansion, what that means. But they'll be going to Vale of Anduin, which I think is kind of in that gap area of where no content is between Mirkwood and the Misty Mountains Moria area. And then after that, they will follow the story back towards Mordor to Minas Morgul itself. So we will be facing Shelob. So I actually had somebody ask me if Shelob was in the game, so it looks like she will be in the future at least. So I think this content, the new content, what they're working towards is pretty exciting as far as the story goes. It's just, as far as what there has been so far, it's kind of, the regions we're in right now, they've kind of felt pretty meh to me. I actually really like one of the recent zones, the Iron Hills, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it's called. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes and just what the zones are and what they'll be like. Moving on to the next section, we have challenge. So that leads to their second goal of the year, it says, and continue to balance the challenge of the game. So this is actually, they're talking about balancing some of the content in the challenge difficulty while questing, doing instances, raids, etc. So they talk about Mordor, and a lot of people split the player base with the difficulty of Mordor. People liking the increased challenge and others expressing concern over the difficulty. So they wanted Mordor to be a scary place, and they heard feedback about how difficult the region is. So for their next expansion, it looks like the goal is to balance the main storyline with the rest of the game's content rather than a big step up in difficulty like Mordor was. In the landscape and normal instances will not have the same increased difficulty that Mordor had. So this is actually, at first I liked the difficulty of Mordor, but it really did drag on and just made it not too fun to play to me from my point of view. And a big thing with that was just getting a little bit of gear. It seemed kind of silly the way it was set up to me. And once you got gear, and specifically your legendary item upgraded, that would help a lot with your damage and killing things faster, but it'd still be pretty dangerous. And I think some of the dangers, some of my issues with Mordor and the difficulty part of it was just how the mobs were placed. It was very frustrating to go through Mordor, which that could be the intentions, it could just be the immersion with that. So that's kind of where I will leave my thoughts on that. I see the viewpoint from both sides. Like, you want Mordor to be scary and difficult, but you also don't want it to be too challenging to just completely turn off players from running through it. So it looks like they will introduce optional challenge into the game in some instance content by extending difficulty tiers up to 4 or even higher. So that's a lot of tiers. It's kind of just my initial thought on that is it's actually reminding me, I don't think I read this paragraph before, but it's reminding me of Mythic and WoW, how that's set up. I'm not completely familiar with how that is, but they have like, you have the different Mythic keys for instances, I think, and basically they act like tiers as far as I know. So it looks like players can test their skill with these higher instance tiers and earn increased rewards. I think that's a good idea, and we'll have to see how that works out. Looks like some solo, even 3 and 6 and 12-man content will have extra tiers of difficulty. Tier 4, Tier 5, or even higher. So that'll allow players to look for more challenge to opt into, while also allowing players who are not interested in more difficult to play through the story and not be engaged in that type of play, not be forced to engage in that type of play, actually. So yeah, I think the idea of that is really great because one of the things, at least with the in-game instances right now, it's hard to get into them if you're just getting to the level cap. It seems like gear and specifically LI upgrades are really important at in-game right now, from like a base character standpoint. Not if you're already doing that type of stuff, but yeah, it's kind of harder to get into right now. So I think if it makes it what it sounds like it makes it out to be, I think it'll make it easier for like casual players to have access to the new content, but without being forced to do very difficult and have to basically manage all the difficulty and be geared and be just fully set up with your character to be able to even do the content to begin with. So I really think that sounds like a pretty exciting change to me. I'm kind of curious, there is a section here on the legendary servers, I guess I should mention that, but since I play on those so much anymore, I'm kind of curious if they'll like work this into some of the content that maybe scales and would have applications to the legendary servers. But maybe we just have to read more to see. But that is something that I am curious about now. So 64-bit client there. I don't know if you all are familiar, but there was a leak that they were testing that on Palantir, and it looks like there's a confirmation that they are testing the 64-bit Windows client, and they're updating their code so that the environments makes better use of graphics memory, so they'll be able to utilize modern graphics card more. That's one issue I have with LOTRO. Like, my GPU is a little bit old, it's a GTX 970, but LOTRO still doesn't even utilize it, usually not even halfway. So yeah, it looks like it'll overcome restrictions on how stuff loads, and it'll be able to improve performance in the game, it looks like, and they hope to have that client in beta as early as March, which March is just a few days away actually, but it is a 30-day month, so we'll see on that. That's pretty exciting though. The next section is class balance. So they recently updated Minstrel, and they'll have a new update to Burglar on the way, and after that, many of the classes will have received their initial balance pass. They do mention later that Captain and Runekeeper specifically, it looks like they have some plans for some changes for them as well in the balance pass, but they say it's a good start, but they want to continue to work on balances with updates, bug fixes, and tweaks throughout the year, and this is something I think is good, because I have a lot of opinions about balance on class and LOTRO. We'll just keep it at that, and I think just continuing to improve on that is a really good thing. And yeah, they want to improve the feedback process this year and beyond. So hopefully they'll be able to incorporate more community feedback in the way they balance and change the classes in the future. It looks like they also do it on their own internal testing, of course. But yeah, I mentioned they have plans specifically for Runekeeper and Captain, but the goal for the future is to be able to add small changes to several classes at a time rather than a large number of changes for a single class like we have seen with these balance passes gone through pretty much all these classes lately. Moving on to crafting, and I actually didn't read this section, honestly. I think I skipped over it now that I see it, but crafting I think is something that could really use some updating, especially at high level, and I see the first two sentences in their section here actually mention that. So at high level, I feel like crafting is just not fun at all. So let's go ahead and see what they have. So one of their goals with this expansion is to add a robust update to crafting, okay. And players can make better use of the system at higher levels. So two of the things I would really like to see. Okay, so of course we had to wait for the train horn to go by, but continuing with crafting, they want players to be able to craft exciting, fun, and powerful items, so I agree with that. Crafting, you should be able to, I think, make exciting, fun, and powerful items. The powerful items, I'm slightly less in agreement. I do think the items should be powerful, but not necessarily best in slot, so they could just mean powerful in general, which I do agree. So the system has been updated as players have leveled, but we want to make crafting changes that are more significant and interesting and give players a way to create better gear as a supplement to other content. So that's something I also agree with. Supplemental gear from crafting is really good, I think. I like that idea. So they want players to have ways to interact with the crafting system as they play through the content without making crafting a requirement to play through the story. So that's another thing. I don't think crafting should ever feel like a requirement, but it could be just a fun system to participate in as you play through the content, especially if that's something you're interested in. And I am personally interested in that, so I like seeing that they'll be doing a crafting update, but I'm curious to see how that will work out, so we'll have to see on that one in the future what it really looks like. Either way, I think it's exciting, and any change with something like that I'm excited for, mainly because I do think it could use some updating. So moving on to virtues, this is one I am very excited about. So I made a video, if anyone's unfamiliar, called like Changes LOTRO Needs for the Future, talking specifically some issues with the legendary server, but the game in general, so the rest of the game, not just the legendary servers. But in that video, I mentioned the virtue system is just not great, basically. That's kind of, I think, the summary of that, and it looks like they will be updating the virtue system to make it more relevant, and they will have a new system where instead of deeds rewarding virtues directly, they will now reward virtue experience points, and they say possibly other content. So that's another thing I mentioned in the video specifically, that virtues being limited to annoying deeds that you kind of either have to grind for and farm, lower level content that's not relevant, or make sure you do it while leveling. It just, to me, is not really a fun system, even though sometimes completing deeds can be fun. Just the system of the way they reward virtues, to me, wasn't fun. So that's another exciting that they have that in parentheses and possibly other content. I hope they do choose to add it to other content. That would be really nice. But yeah, it looks like virtue experience points replace the virtues, and you will choose which virtue advances with your virtue experience points. So kind of like, I guess, leveling a virtue portion of your character with XP and stuff, kind of like allies and just that type of stuff. And you can choose to advance certain virtues up. And that does include virtues that are slotted or not. So this is a pretty specific change they're going into with virtues here. I kind of like that I guess they have this idea more fully fledged out than, say, the crafting update. But yeah, this is kind of nice to see a very solid change that will be coming up in the future. So existing virtue ranks will be converted to the new system with their virtue level intact. So nothing will change with your character virtue-wise. You won't lose anything. That's a good thing. And now all virtues will provide a small passive benefit to your character even if they are not slotted. I'm curious what that small passive benefit is. If it's like out of combat power regen, or just something not as useful, or something could actually, the passive benefit could be a little bit beneficial, even if it is a small boost. I'm kind of curious what that will be. But it says the change will allow players more choice when entering virtue benefits. So I really like this change. As I mentioned, the virtue system, not great, and I'm pretty excited to see these changes with the virtues and how that will work out. Sounds like it also just overall offers you more choice in virtues and which one you want to choose, rather than deeds just rewarding ones you might not even want at all while playing through the game. So the next one is Kinships, this section. This is another section I actually didn't read. I guess I just glanced over some of the ones I was really interested in when I saw oh, virtues update, class balance. But yeah, skip Kinships as well when I was going through my initial read. So it says they are looking for more ways for kinships to advance and new rewards for kins to earn as a group. We like the idea of small and large kins advancing. I think that's important, not to put large kins at a huge advantage over smaller, tight-knit kins. And it says earning cosmetic rewards for their housing. That's something I assume that's a nice thing, do kin activities, get kin rewards for your kin house. And allowing kin leaders to occasionally activate buffs that could benefit the entire kinship. So that's kind of interesting. It says kin leaders, plural, so I assume in a raid situation is what I am thinking of. You can get a kin buff that will, I don't know, do some sort of buff to your entire kinship. It actually says that benefits the entire kinship, but the way I interpret it is in a raid setting you get maybe a 5% damage buff from a kin leader. I don't know if that means you can choose who can give these buffs, but yeah, activating these buffs would cost less for smaller kins without compromising the value of maintaining large kinships if that is what players prefer. Again, that's something I really agree on. Don't want to neglect smaller kins just to boost up larger kins even more. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm not sure if those buffs, after reading it a little bit more, if they apply like a damage buff like that, or if it's something else, maybe you get plus 25% marks or something, some sort of buff like that. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how that works out. Exciting change again to a system that works as it is, but something just exciting to add to it, I think. So moving on, we have the grouping section. Now this one, they have the instance group feature. So this one, they want to provide a new instance grouping feature that resembles the existing quest grouping tab on the social panel. So this feature will allow you to add up to 5 instances with class and level requirement criteria and possibly others. I guess if you're looking for a group, you can just do it. kind of like it says the following the quest group tab on the social panel. So their goal is to replace the group functionality of the instance finder and lessen the need to send frequent LFF chat requests. So the instance finder, that thing, nobody uses it basically is how that works, and it just doesn't work. So it looks like this is going to replace the instance finder, not necessarily launching instances. I don't think won't replace that part probably, but yeah, nobody uses the instance finder really for actually forming and trying to find a group, even though if people used it, it might work out okay, but it also didn't really match groups up all that well when it did work and people actually tried to use it. But anyway, this also could lessen the frequency, it looks like, to LFF chat requests for groups, so I don't really have too much issue with that because you can always leave LFF if you want, but yeah, sometimes it can get spammy, and I honestly sometimes feel like I'm too spammy even when searching for groups, so something like that to help with that I think is a good thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I would hope that would help for some more casual in-game grouping, as far as like with their additional changes with the tiers and challenge and all the stuff in the beginning. I'm kind of hoping it works out for a more casual player base, also the more dedicated, harder difficulty player base, to be able to find people who actually have the requirements met for their group, to find players that want to do that as well. So it actually works for both communities, I think, so it's exciting to see how that goes. And getting into the very last change here, we have Legendary Server. With all this, they want to continue to make improvements to the game as the players on the Legendary servers march forward and they unlock new content on those servers. So like Moria's coming in the future, and it actually says players can expect to visit Moria in the near future, and they will continue to update the Legendary servers throughout the rest of the year. So the Legendary servers there, I'm kind of curious if they'll make some more specific changes with like content that the Legendary servers will advance to, because I highlighted in my recent Minds of Moria video that there were some issues I feel like could be dealt with for the Legendary servers as they progress to Moria, and even some issues that would probably extend into future expansions like Mirkwood and Rise of Isengard. So I'm kind of curious if they have any specific changes in mind of what they will be doing. Namely, I guess the big elephant is Essence Gear, but we'll see with that. I am glad that they want to continue to make improvements to the game for the Legendary servers, and even some of the changes here, like they don't directly apply to the Legendary servers, they apply to the whole game, but they do still apply to the Legendary servers, I guess. And yeah, that is it for their producer's letter, the February 2019 A Look Ahead producer's letter. So they actually do have one last sentence here. We have a busy year ahead of us, and we are excited to continue our journey with you all. Thank you for reading, and thank you for playing The Lord of the Rings Online. That's from Severlin. So yeah, I think this is overall exciting. I'm really glad to see some of these changes that are coming in the future. We have the story changes, I guess I'll go through a little summary here, but yeah, the story changes continuing and eventually going to Minas Morgul. That's exciting to see where that leads. I'm excited for the challenge changes, see how the landscape feels, and I almost feel like the challenge, at least at the level cap as it currently is, just allies how much they scale, and all the problems with the Starlit Crystals as far as those go. I wonder how the challenge will play with that. But that's a whole other issue that I just thought of while reading that. 64-bit client, of course, excited for that. Class balance change is always good. Crafting update will be interesting to see what that looks like. I'm pretty excited for the virtue changes. Kinship changes, nice for kin group activities. Grouping changes, hopefully they will help groups with forming and all that type of stuff. And then the Legendary server changes again. Not really changes there, but yeah, they continue want to improve the game as the new content unlocks on those servers, so yeah, exciting for that. And overall, I'm excited about the changes for LOTRO in the future. I've been waiting for the producer's letter. Normally, it seems like they release them earlier in the year, so it's exciting to see exactly what they have planned for 2019 and just some of their goals for the game in 2019, and a lot of it's good stuff to me. So yeah, that is most of what I have planned for this video. I know today's actually been kind of hectic because I had a stream in the morning and then I had another video at 12 p.m. one of the character builds, and yeah, I didn't know this producer's letter would be going today. I probably would have waited for that video. I actually meant to pushed it later since I was able to get to doing a stream this morning. But I will also be doing another stream tonight of Rift, so 4 videos today, pretty crazy for me, but I hope you all have been enjoying this content, and as well as this video specifically. If you have any feedback for stuff like this in the future, please do let me know. Kind of just ran through this pretty quickly since it was just released. Thought I'd go ahead and get that up, but again, I hope you all enjoyed, and if you have any feedback, let me know. And if you did enjoy, please do consider liking and subscribing for more, and thanks for watching, everyone.